Let me speak to you with clarity and strength. If you cannot let go, you cannot grow. Every great transformation in life demands separation. Not everything that enters your life is meant to remain. Some people are lessons, some situations are assignments, and some chapters must end so that your destiny can begin. The tragedy is not that things leave. The tragedy is when you hold on long after they have expired. Understand this: attachment without purpose weakens the spirit. When you cling to people who no longer align with your future, you are choosing comfort over calling. When you replay situations that have already ended, you are living in yesterday while opportunity stands waiting in tomorrow. Growth requires space, and space requires release. Letting go is not weakness. It is command over your emotion. Most people stay attached because they fear emptiness. They fear being alone. They fear starting again. But what you call emptiness is actually preparation. It is the silent room where your character is rebuilt. It is the battlefield where emotional discipline is forged. You must decide that your peace is non-negotiable. If someone disrupts your clarity, drains your ambition, or weakens your standards, they are not a blessing. They are a distraction. And distractions are the enemy of greatness. Every successful individual understands this law. Protect your energy at all costs. There is power in walking away without drama. You do not need to explain your growth to those committed to staying the same. You do not need to argue with those who misunderstand your evolution. Silence is strength. Distance is power. Focus is freedom. Let go of the person who no longer respects you. Let go of the situation that no longer challenges you. Let go of the memory that no longer serves you, because every time you refuse to release what is over, you delay what is waiting. Painful endings are not punishments. They are promotions. Life removes what cannot accompany you to your next level. And if you resist, you suffer longer than necessary. But when you accept, you accelerate. You must train your mind to see endings as redirections. The mind is a powerful instrument. If you allow it to replay betrayal, you relive it. If you allow it to replay loss, you strengthen it. But if you command it to focus on growth, you rise. The difference is discipline. Emotional maturity means choosing progress over attachment. You are not required to carry what broke you. You are not required to stay where you are tolerated. You are not required to keep proving your worth. Your value does not decrease when someone fails to recognize it, and your destiny does not depend on those who walk away. Have the courage to release with gratitude. Thank the lesson. Bless the memory. Close the chapter. Then move forward without looking back. Strength is not found in holding on. Strength is revealed in knowing when to release. Every great achievement in history required someone to leave something behind. Old habits, old alliances, old environments. Growth demands sacrifice. And sometimes the sacrifice is emotional. Do not confuse loyalty with self-destruction. There is a difference between commitment and attachment. Commitment builds. Attachment blinds. When you see clearly, you act decisively. Let your standards become stronger than your feelings. If the relationship no longer aligns with your future, release it. If the environment no longer supports your ambition, leave it. If the situation no longer brings growth, end it. Clarity is power. When you master letting go, you master momentum. Because now your energy is not divided. Now your focus is not scattered. Now your heart is not anchored to the past. And when your energy, focus, and heart align, progress becomes inevitable. You were not created to carry expired seasons. You were created to evolve. So today, make the decision. Release what resists your growth. Release what change your spirit. Release what limits your vision. Stand tall in your standards. Walk forward in faith. Trust that what is meant for you will require no force and no begging. And remember this final truth. The moment you let go of what is not meant for you, you create space for what has always been waiting. Let go. Not with anger, let go. Not with regret, let go with power. And step into the next chapter of your life, stronger, clearer, and unstoppable. Acceptance of reality is where power begins. The moment you stop arguing with what is, you reclaim the energy you have been wasting on resistance. Reality does not bend because you are uncomfortable. It does not soften because you are disappointed. It stands firm, unmoved, indifferent to your denial. And when you finally face it without excuses, without fantasy, without emotional negotiation, something shifts inside you. Clarity replaces confusion. Strength replaces chaos. You stop asking why this happened to you and start asking what this is teaching you. That shift is the birth of personal authority. Most suffering is not caused by events. It is caused by resisting events. You replay conversations that already ended. You imagine different outcomes that will never exist. You fight battles in your mind long after the war is over, and every time you do, you drain your power. Acceptance is not surrender. It is strategic alignment with truth. It is the discipline of saying, this is what it is, and then redirecting your focus toward what can be built from here. When you accept reality, you stop bleeding energy into the past and start investing energy into the present. Denial feels safer because it delays pain. But denial is expensive. It charges interest in the form of anxiety, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. Acceptance, on the other hand, demands courage up front and then rewards you with freedom. It forces you to confront the loss, the mistake, the betrayal, the failure. It forces you to admit that something is over, broken, or beyond your control. Yet in that confrontation, you discover resilience you did not know you possessed. You discover that truth, no matter how sharp, is cleaner than illusion. When you accept reality, you stop trying to control people who have chosen their path. You stop trying to revive situations that have already expired. You stop trying to rewrite chapters that have already been printed. This does not mean you approve of everything that happened. It means you refuse to let it dominate your future. You draw a clear line between what you can influence and what you must release. That line becomes the boundary that protects your growth. Emotional maturity is measured by how quickly you accept what cannot be changed. Immaturity argues with facts. Maturity studies them and adapts. If a door closes, you do not sit in front of it demanding explanations. You assess the corridor and search for another entrance. If a relationship ends, you do not beg for validation. You examine the lesson and strengthen your standards. If a plan fails, you do not collapse. You refine the strategy and move again. Acceptance transforms setbacks into information. There is strength in saying, this is not what I wanted, but this is what is. That sentence contains power because it eliminates fantasy. It removes the emotional fog that clouds decision-making. Once the fog clears, your thinking sharpens. You begin to see opportunities hidden behind disappointment. You begin to notice patterns you ignored before. You recognize your own role in outcomes without drowning in guilt. Acceptance does not blame. It evaluates. It does not dramatize. It recalibrates. Reality is a mirror. It reflects your choices, your habits, your standards, and your boundaries. When you refuse to look into that mirror, you remain stagnant. When you look directly into it, without flinching, you gain insight. Insight creates improvement. Improvement builds confidence, and confidence fuels momentum. Acceptance is the gateway to all of it. Without it, you remain trapped in emotional loops, reacting instead of leading your life. You cannot build a powerful future on top of a denied present. The foundation must be honest. If you are unhappy, admit it. If you made a mistake, own it. If someone no longer belongs in your life, acknowledge it. If an opportunity has passed, recognize it. Truth may sting, but it stabilizes you. It prevents you from constructing dreams on unstable ground. It gives you solid footing from which to advance. Acceptance also strengthens discipline. Once you stop resisting reality, you free mental space. That space can now be directed toward growth. Instead of obsessing over what should have happened, you focus on what must happen next. Instead of replaying emotional pain, you design practical solutions. Your energy becomes intentional. Your actions become calculated. Your progress becomes measurable. The strongest individuals are not those who avoid hardship. They are those who face it without distortion. They do not exaggerate losses. They do not minimize challenges. They confront facts directly and respond decisively. Acceptance becomes their shield against emotional chaos. It prevents panic. It prevents impulsive reactions. It keeps them grounded when circumstances shift. There is a quiet confidence that emerges when you fully accept your situation. You stop chasing closure from people who cannot provide it. You stop waiting for apologies that may never come. You stop expecting fairness from a world that does not guarantee it. Instead, you focus on what you can control, your mindset, your effort, your standards, your next move. Control shifts from external to internal. That shift is liberation. Acceptance is not passive. It is powerful positioning. It places you exactly where you are with full awareness and challenges you to respond with strength. It demands honesty about your circumstances and responsibility for your direction. It removes illusions so you can operate with precision. It strengthens your mental endurance because you are no longer fighting imaginary battles. When you master acceptance, you stop wasting time. You stop chasing outcomes that no longer align. You stop clinging to identities that no longer serve you. You evolve faster because you are not dragging resistance behind you. You move cleaner, lighter, sharper. Acceptance of reality is not the end of ambition. It is the beginning of intelligent action. It is the moment you step out of emotional confusion and into strategic clarity. It is where excuses dissolve and responsibility rises. It is where strength becomes visible in your posture, your tone, your decisions. And once you stand firmly in reality, unshaken by discomfort, you become unstoppable in your progress. Emotional discipline is the line that separates the powerful from the powerless. The moment you choose control over craving, clarity over clinging, and strength over sentiment, you step into authority over your own life. Attachment feels intense, dramatic, and consuming. Discipline feels quiet, firm, and deliberate. One reacts, the other decides, one begs to be validated, the other stands rooted in self-respect. When you master your emotions instead of being mastered by them, you stop living at the mercy of other people's choices. Attachment convinces you that you cannot function without someone, without something, without a certain outcome. It whispers that your peace depends on their presence, their approval, their consistency. Emotional discipline rejects that illusion. It reminds you that your stability is internal. It teaches you that your identity is not defined by who stays or who leaves. The disciplined mind does not collapse when expectations are unmet. It adjusts, recalibrates, and moves forward without emotional chaos. Most people confuse love with dependency and loyalty with self-neglect. They tolerate disrespect because they fear loss. They silence their standards because they fear loneliness. They compromise their vision because they fear rejection. Attachment feeds on fear. Emotional discipline feeds on self-worth. When you strengthen your self-worth, you stop chasing what weakens you. You stop holding on to connections that drain your ambition. You stop negotiating with behaviors that violate your boundaries. Control over emotion does not mean suppression. It means direction. You feel deeply, but you do not act impulsively. You experience disappointment, but you do not allow it to dictate your decisions. You encounter rejection, but you do not let it rewrite your value. Emotional discipline means your actions are guided by principles, not temporary feelings. Feelings change with circumstances. Principles remain steady under pressure. Attachment creates emotional turbulence. It pulls your focus away from your purpose. It makes you overanalyze messages, replay conversations, and question your worth. It distracts you from growth. Discipline anchors you. It centers your attention on progress. It keeps your mind aligned with your long-term goals rather than short-term emotional highs. The disciplined individual understands that intensity is not the same as importance. Just because something feels powerful does not mean it is beneficial. When you practice emotional discipline, you stop reacting immediately. You pause, you assess, you choose. That pause is power. It prevents regret. It prevents escalation. It prevents decisions that are rooted in insecurity. The attached mind seeks reassurance. The disciplined mind seeks clarity. Reassurance is temporary. Clarity is permanent. Attachment often comes from unhealed wounds. It arises from the fear of abandonment, the need for validation, the hunger to be chosen. Emotional discipline confronts those wounds instead of masking them with dependency. It asks hard questions. Why do you feel incomplete without this person? Why does their absence disturb your peace? Why does their opinion influence your confidence? Those questions strengthen awareness. Awareness builds control. Discipline also strengthens boundaries. When you are emotionally disciplined, you do not tolerate behavior that contradicts your standards. You do not stay in environments that erode your confidence. You do not allow manipulation to disguise itself as affection. You recognize red flags without romanticizing them. You understand that attachment can blind you, but discipline sharpens your perception. There is a quiet strength in detachment. It is not coldness, it is stability. It is knowing that you can care without clinging, you can appreciate without depending, you can love without losing yourself. Emotional discipline allows connection without surrendering identity. You remain whole whether someone stays or walks away. Growth demands this mastery. Every level of success requires emotional regulation. Without it, you become reactive under pressure. You make decisions based on hurt instead of strategy. You compromise your goals for temporary comfort. Discipline protects your future from the volatility of your feelings. It ensures that your vision is not sabotaged by insecurity. Emotional discipline also strengthens resilience. When disappointment arrives, you do not crumble. When conflict arises, you do not explode. When expectations fail, you do not spiral. You process, you reflect, you adjust. The storm may exist around you, but it does not control you. That inner steadiness is cultivated, not inherited. It is built through conscious restraint and intentional thought. Attachment drains energy because it is rooted in constant anticipation. You wait for texts, for attention, for signs. You live in suspense. Discipline frees that energy. It redirects focus toward improvement, ambition, and self-development. Instead of obsessing over who is watching you, you concentrate on becoming someone worth watching. Instead of chasing validation, you buoy. LD value strength is not measured by how tightly you hold on. It is measured by how confidently you can release. Emotional discipline empowers you to let go when necessary, without drama, without revenge, without desperation. It allows you to exit situations with dignity and tact. It prevents you from begging for what should be given freely. The disciplined individual understands that emotions are signals, not commanders. They provide information, not instructions. You acknowledge them, analyze, and then choose your response deliberately. This separation between feeling and action creates maturity. It transforms relationships. It strengthens leadership. It builds influence. When emotional discipline becomes your standard, attachment loses its grip. You no longer seek to be completed by others. You stand complete on your own. You connect from abundance, not need. You remain composed in uncertainty. You maintain focus when distractions attempt to pull you off course. Power belongs to those who control themselves. Emotional discipline over attachment is not about becoming distant. It is about becoming stable. It is about loving wisely, choosing carefully, and walking away when necessary without losing your composure. When your emotions answer to your principles instead of your fears, you move through life with confidence, clarity, and unshakable strength. Your worth is not up for negotiation. The moment you tie your value to someone else's approval, you hand them control over your confidence, your peace, and your direction. Approval is unstable. It shifts with moods, opinions, trends, and expectations. Self-worth is stable. It is rooted in identity, character, and standards. When you understand this difference, you stop performing for validation and start living from conviction. Most people are trained from childhood to seek applause. Good grades earn praise. Good behavior earns acceptance. Good performance earns recognition. Slowly, without realizing it, they equate love with approval. They grow into adults who measure their value by likes, compliments, promotions, and attention. They fear criticism more than failure. They avoid authenticity if it risks disapproval. That pattern weakens potential. It builds a life based on pleasing rather than leading. Self-worth above approval requires mental independence. It demands that you separate your identity from public opinion. People will misunderstand you. Some will criticize you. Others will doubt you. If every opinion shakes your confidence, you will live cautiously instead of courageously. True power begins when you accept that not everyone will approve of your growth. In fact, growth often threatens those who are comfortable. Approval is addictive. It gives a temporary emotional high. When someone praises you, you feel seen. When someone validates you, you feel secure. But that security is fragile because it depends on repetition. The moment the praise stops, insecurity rises. Self-worth eliminates that cycle. When you value yourself internally, praise becomes appreciated but not required. Criticism becomes informative but not destructive. To build self-worth, you must define yourself by principles rather than perception. Who are you when no one is watching? What standards do you maintain when there is no applause? What decisions do you make when validation is not guaranteed? These questions strengthen internal alignment. When your actions reflect your standards consistently, confidence grows naturally. You stop needing external confirmation because you trust your own evaluation. Many people shrink themselves to maintain approval. They soften their voice to avoid conflict. They lower their ambition to avoid jealousy. They silence their opinions to avoid rejection. Every compromise chips away at self-respect. You may gain acceptance, but you lose authenticity. And without authenticity, there is no fulfillment. Approval gained through self-betrayal is expensive. It costs. Chew your identity. Self-worth demands boundaries. It requires you to say no without guilt. It requires you to walk away without explanation when respect is absent. It requires you to choose environments that align with your standards rather than environments that simply welcome you. Not every invitation deserves acceptance. Not every group deserves your presence. When you understand your value, you become selective with your energy. Criticism loses its power when you know who you are. It becomes data rather than a verdict. You evaluate it logically instead of absorbing it emotionally. If it is constructive, you improve. If it is baseless, you discard it. This discipline prevents insecurity from taking root. It allows you to remain steady while others project their doubts onto you. Approval often comes with conditions. You are accepted as long as you behave a certain way, as long as you meet expectations, as long as you remain convenient. Self-worth rejects conditional acceptance. It recognizes that respect should not require self-erasure. You are not obligated to fit into spaces that demand you dilute your strength. Building self-worth also means acknowledging your imperfections without shame. You are not flawless. You will make mistakes. You will experience failure. But your errors do not erase your value. They refine your character. When you own your flaws openly, you remove the fear of exposure. You stop chasing approval to hide insecurity. You grow stronger because you accept yourself fully. Comparison is another threat to self-worth. When you measure yourself against others constantly, you create unnecessary pressure. Someone will always be ahead in some area. Approval culture amplifies comparison. It encourages competition for attention. Self-worth shifts focus inward. It emphasizes progress over popularity. It measures growth by personal improvement, not public applause. Confidence built on approval is unstable because it depends on consistency from others. Confidence built on self-worth is durable because it depends on consistency from you. When you keep promises to yourself, discipline yourself, and align your actions with your goals, you earn internal respect. That respect becomes unshakable confidence. There will be moments when standing by your standards isolates you. You may lose certain connections. You may be misunderstood. You may face resistance. But temporary discomfort is better than long-term regret. Living authentically may reduce applause, but it increases fulfillment. It strengthens resilience. It deepens character. When self-worth becomes your foundation, you no longer chase validation. You attract respect naturally because you operate from certainty. You do not seek permission to grow. You do not apologize for ambition. You do not compromise your identity to maintain comfort. Your presence carries quiet authority because it is not dependent on reaction. Approval can enhance your journey, but it cannot define it. Praise is a bonus, not a requirement. Recognition is pleasant, not essential. When you anchor your confidence internally, you become stable in success and steady in criticism. You move with clarity instead of craving. Self-worth above approval transforms your decisions. You choose purpose over popularity, integrity over image, growth over comfort. You stop asking, will they like this? And start asking, is this aligned with who I am becoming? That shift strengthens leadership, relationships, and ambition. When you no longer need approval to feel valuable, you become free. Free to speak boldly, free to act decisively, free to walk alone if necessary, free to pursue goals without waiting for applause. That freedom is powerful. It creates momentum. It builds influence. It sharpens focus. Your worth is intrinsic. It is not granted by others, and it cannot be revoked by them. When you recognize this truth deeply, approval becomes secondary. You operate from self-respect. You stand firm in your standards. You advance with conviction. And in that state of internal certainty, you move through life with strength that cannot be shaken by shifting opinions. Purpose is stronger than pain. The moment you decide that your mission matters more than your wounds, you shift from victim to visionary. Pain is loud. It demands attention. It pulls your focus toward what was lost, what was broken, what felt unfair. Purpose is quieter but far more powerful. It directs your energy forward. It reminds you that discomfort is temporary, but destiny is permanent. When purpose becomes your priority, pain loses its authority over your decisions. Pain is inevitable. Disappointment will visit you. Betrayal may test you. Failure will challenge your confidence. These experiences are part of growth, not evidence of defeat. The difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck is not the absence of pain. It is the presence of purpose. Without purpose, pain feels pointless. With purpose, pain becomes preparation. It sharpens you. It strengthens you. It forces you to evolve beyond your previous limits. When you focus only on pain, you shrink your perspective. You replay moments that hurt you. You question your worth. You dwell on injustice. Your mind circles the same emotional territory repeatedly. But when you anchor yourself in purpose, your perspective expands. You start asking how this experience can serve your development. You search for lessons instead of validation. You convert emotion into strategy. Purpose creates endurance. It gives you a reason to continue when motivation fades. It provides clarity when confusion rises. If your vision is clear enough, your pain becomes fuel. Every setback becomes a reminder of why you must improve. Every obstacle becomes a test of commitment. The greater the mission, the smaller the wound appears in comparison. Many people allow pain to define them. They introduce themselves through their struggles. They carry resentment like an identity. They let past injuries dictate present behavior. Purpose challenges that pattern. It demands that you